Hey everyone, it's me, Ali Alberigo, and as promised today, I'm going to do another Facebook Live. I'm actually trying my desktop camera this time, much better than my phone. It's wider, it's clearer, and easier for me to operate. I did get some pointers from certain people, look directly into the camera, more eye contact. Some people recommended logos and for me to start doing sales and things like that. But I'm not really interested in using this as a promotional tool. Really, more so, the reason why I'm doing this is just to spread the word of martial arts and happiness and, different technologies or thoughts on how to make our lives better. I was really excited to see I had a lot of friends that I haven't talked to in years from high school, and a whole bunch of people that are martial art friends and associates and some students and so on. So thank you for being here. I'm not going to do a real long one. However, I'm going to answer some of the questions, and I might look off onto my other monitor for some of the questions. However, I posted yesterday that, I wanted to see what most people wanted me to talk about. However, Facebook, for some reason in the feed, keeps changing the order and hiding comments. And I'm trying to figure out why. I can't get it on one setting that shows all the comments. So I'm going to do my best to go through and actually try to answer some of the questions. So for one of my students from Bermuda, who now I believe lives in Canada, Kevin, he asked me about a recent blog post that I did. And he asked me to explain more about building your spiritual body. I think the blog was more about spiritual muscles. And what I meant by that was, how do we get stronger in our spirituality? How do we dig deeper and become a better person? How do we create a lifestyle of abundance rather than scarcity? These are all really important questions for us to look at within our lives. For example, let me tell you a quick story. When I was in Thailand, I was walking through the jungles with my good friend, really good training buddy, best friend, Randy Weekly. And we saw a hut, which was literally no more than 4 tree branches or tree logs with a roof, a metal corrugated roof on the top of it. It was open air, no walls, no bathroom in sight. And I noticed a hammock hanging from the 2 trees, and I saw them swatting the hammock. And I thought, to me, because I was on this spiritual quest, what could this be? Why are they doing this spiritual ritual before they go to bed? So I asked my friend, I said, why are they doing that? And he said, oh, I'm not sure. And then we asked the person, and the person said, oh, not a spiritual ritual. It's to make sure there are no poisonous snakes or spiders in our hammock before we go to bed. Now, it's interesting that, to me, I was looking for some spirituality in this message, and the reality was that it really wasn't anything other than self-protection. Now, on the other side of the hut or shanty or whatever you call it, there was these kids playing, and they were having the time of their lives, a blast. You know what they were doing? They were kicking around an empty Coca-Cola, plastic Coca-Cola bottle, and they were basically having fun. Now, my daughter, students that I know, parents all the time in my dojo say to me, the kids don't want to train anymore, they're getting bored. Or my daughter had said to me on 1 or 2 occasions, I'm bored. And I said, you have no right to be bored. You have too much at your disposal to entertain you, And after that, she understood, but nowadays she's just sitting on her phone and entertaining herself on social media or some app or game. Anyway, back to the question from Kevin. Spiritual muscles are how we practice spirituality or compassion or empathy. So the more we do it, the better we become at it. The more we do it, the more it enlightens our soul and other souls. And it's kind of like a snowball effect. It makes us want to do it more. We tend to get caught up in the media these days, and we're hearing negative stuff. I mean, just turn on the news. There's a beautiful person smiling, and they say, hey, 12 people killed in a bus crash, film at 11, as if I want to hear that. I don't want to know negative stuff. I don't want to poison my soul with putting in garbage. You know what they say, garbage in, garbage out, right? The more negative stuff we hear, the worse it is. The more we talk about politics and we criticize each other about our views, the more we tend to be bitter. We can be that old man sitting in our front yard, and when the kid's ball rolls up on the lawn, we could go grab it and bring it in the house, or we could throw it out and maybe join the game. It really all depends on your attitude. So we have to practice building those spiritual muscles, building building those compassion and empathetic muscles, if that makes sense. I hope that's good. I see a lot of my friends on here. Wow, this is pretty awesome. Bill Froe from Great Lakes Taekwondo in Michigan, Sensei Sonny Williams Jr., he joined, and Louis Acosta from Florida, Jamie Eisen, an old student, Ron Carlson, one of my good friends from Colorado, a master, incredible. Eamon's back, a lot of people. Anyway, thank you for being here. Question number 2. One of my friends who is a yoga practitioner and a holistic healer and an herbologist, he said, mention health and wellness. And I'm going to probably save this for another topic, but briefly understand the same thing I said about spiritual muscles. Your body is your temple, right? You have to protect your temple, right? You can't let it be destroyed by bad weather and lack of maintenance. So you have to be healthy and practice, staying fit and eating correctly. Because remember, that same garbage in, garbage out goes for diet as well. And I just warn everyone out there, our diets, we could even try to eat healthy. And at times, what we're putting in our body is not giving us the nutrients that we want. They did studies maybe about 20, 30 years ago that a bowl of spinach had way more iron and nutrients than it does a bowl of spinach today. So we can eat the same amount of food and get half the nutrients because the way they're growing food at the speed and rate that they're growing food, and how they're producing this food with chemicals to stimulate growth, etc. I don't want to get into it right now, but I will do a topic on veganism. I'm sure a lot of people will hang up shut me off because I will get into my philosophies a little of why I'm a vegan, and why I do it, but we'll do that at another time. Lewis, of course, is out there. He keeps plugging. Talk about the dojo in Boynton Beach, Florida. We are opening a new Long Island Ninjutsu Centers in Boynton Beach. Lewis is the head instructor. He's my partner. He's a great martial artist and a student and a really unbelievable martial artist. So please stay tuned for that. And you could reach out to me if you live in the Boynton area or if you know anyone to help us promote that. Paul asked me about IRS trouble. That's a whole nother topic. I don't really want to talk about business, although I will touch on one topic. One of my students asked me, how do you, run a martial arts school? It's a business, and how do you run it and not, sacrifice your integrity? Now, first, here's my philosophy, and I hope that the parents are listening and the students are listening. And I'm holding up my quote fingers, right? While you may consider this a business, right? Because we exchange money for lessons. However, in my opinion, really we don't, because that's really not what you're paying for. And I'll explain that in a second. But we are not a business. We're a martial arts school. We're a school of higher learning, a life skill institute. I don't care what art you teach, what style you're in, if you're great or you're fair. Most martial artists out there that are teaching are trying to share what they know to help others. It's not a big money grab, a money scam, a way of making money. It is not a business. It is a school. You may think because you're paying that the word business comes into the conversation, but it doesn't. You don't consider your children's school a business. You don't consider college a business. You don't consider BOCES a business, right? We consider that an educational forum. Martial arts is no different. In fact, martial arts is way above most of those things because we don't just teach one subject. We teach a lifestyle, a life skill. We teach people how to live a more effective and more, productive and happier life. That's what martial arts is all about. That's what I believe it to be about. Maybe some people might disagree with me. And I had a debate with a good friend of mine, John Hackelman, on kata versus no kata. And it's not just about kicking and punching sometimes. The martial arts has taught me way more. And yes, I've gotten in real fights, many of them, on the street, in self-defense, doing bouncing and bodyguarding and fighting in the ring. And I've been mugged a few times and defended myself successfully. However, just understand that really what I've got out of the martial arts is relationships and friendships. Some of my best friends in the entire world that I know, that I hang out with, that I consider my best friends, I met all of them through the martial arts. So wow, it may have helped me to prepare for self-defense, but it really has given me so much more. So all you're doing is going to a gym to grapple and to fight and do MMA, and you're not digging into the spiritual aspect of the martial arts, you're really going to lose a lot of your whole overall experience. And by the way, You develop strength through this mental, spiritual training. You become calmer, more peaceful through meditation and practicing love and compassion. So for me, no, the martial arts is not a business. It's actually quite insulting to a martial art instructor when you say, this is a business, because it's really not. We have given our lives. Now look at me. I've done this for 48 going on 49 years. Anything that I've ever learned in my entire life, whether it be from business, from relationships, from experiences, comes my martial art lessons, right? So I might not just classically be teaching a ruha or a kata, a technique, a waza, a movement of martial arts or ninjutsu. I'm teaching my entire life experiences into what I've learned, into that technique, into that art. This is where I think that the martial arts is being lost, because, and it's not so much the teachers, but the teachers are forced to try to cut out what they do because the consumer thinks that they're buying a product, and they want a product and they want a result. Just so, like if we went to a restaurant and we ordered a meal, we want it to taste good, we want the restaurant to be clean, we want the service to be good, the ambiance to be good. That's great, right? But sometimes within the martial arts, the lessons are not quite obvious, right? I had a parent, he said to me not too long ago that my lobby was too warm and it was uncomfortable. And while I appreciate that, and I understand that I'm trying to create the best experience for my students and give them an area to sit and monitors to watch and a place to be with a family environment. And boy, oh boy, you have no idea how much goes into building this machine, so to speak, and then someone to complain about something that has absolutely nothing to do with why I'm in the school in the first place, why I teach martial arts. I'm teaching martial arts. I'm not teaching, lobby etiquette, although I am doing my best to make sure our school is clean, beautiful, comfortable, and so on. I really am focused on the lessons of the martial arts. And, if that was a student, an actual martial arts student, they said, oh, I'm too hot, I'd say, suck it up. That's part of the training. If they'd say I'm too tired, I'd say, suck it up. It's part of the training. I need a drink. Well, you don't need a drink right now because that's part of the training. It's all about being able to take our minds and build those spiritual muscles, those mental muscles, and of course, at the end of the day, those physical muscles. I'm blown away by how many people that are on board with us right now. And, Mr. Gabriele, his two children train with me, some other friends, Chris, an old student who I've been pleading with to get him back. Chris, come back soon and train, man. An old friend from high school, Brian Gallagher, and, Mike Pinelli says very true. Good buddy of mine who's one of those guys that I met through the martial arts, and we become best of friends. I hold him dear to my heart. Yesterday, I told him on text that he was a super special person, and I thought that he was an amazing person and he changed people's lives. And he didn't believe, he thought I butt dialed him and sent it to the wrong person. But, he's a martial artist. He's one of those guys who's been doing this for 25 some odd years, giving his entire heart and soul to his students and creating an environment where people walk away better people. Okay. And by the way, I warned you, I can ramble, and I said I won't try to make this too long, but I could talk, as you know. And I hope I'm doing better with eye contact. I hope I'm addressing some of the questions here. Let's go into another question. One of my friends said, Dwayne Montigny, who's a buddy from elementary school, he said to me, what are your life experiences as a single father active in a child's life? Now, my daughter, my wife and I, or ex-wife and I, got divorced about 13 years ago, somewhere around there. And my daughter and I spent our entire lives together. I shared 50% custody. However, fortunately, because of my job, I was able to pick her up and drive her to school and spend time after school with her. And we were pretty much inseparable, to the point now that she's away at college, and it breaks my heart because I don't see her every day, but I'm getting used to it. So Kiara, if you're listening, that's, this is something that I'm working on. And, so how was it that I was able to be a single dad and do so well, or raise a great kid? The one advice I'm going to give to you is this, is that children don't need an abundance of things. They don't need every single toy. They don't need to be in every single activity. They don't need to be scheduled every single day. In fact, I'm reading a great book. The book, I've read it twice before, and now there's a third or fourth edition that I just bought, and it's called Yardsticks by Chip Wood. I know it sounds funny. His name is actually Chip Wood. And anyway, the book is all about age developmental learning. And within the first two chapters, I found that some of the stuff they're saying is incredible, that children are too inundated with trying to make fit in a box to pass tests that are set up by someone to create a army of soldiers, of worker bees that can do certain tasks. In my opinion, I think that's pretty much a waste of time. I think that education, while it is necessary and awesome, creativity and freedom of learning is probably the most important thing. Look, I'll give you an example. I've only done minor college courses. I went away to, went to college for, the things that I thought I needed for the businesses that I owned at the time when I was going. I was a young man. I started my own landscape construction company, and I learned, architectural design, landscape architecture, anything to do with a pesticide applicating license and so on. So I went to the college for that. However, I was very successful, had over 30 employees, 4 crews in my landscape business. I simultaneously went to martial arts and then opened up a martial arts school, eventually sold my landscape business for a decent amount of money. I didn't fit into the boxes. In fact, half the time, I bet you my school teachers would have probably voted me most likely to fail or go to prison. In fact, some of them now I see and they're like, wow, you've really done well. I've owned martial arts schools all over the world, traveled, written books, and all of these things. And why I'm bringing this up is because I didn't have that traditional box type education where I was forced to act and be a certain way, to learn topics that I may never use ever again, to do things that I might not ever do or have to do, so my point of the educational system and why I'm bringing that up is that, we have to understand that we have to give our kids downtime, freedom of imagination, not pressure them with all of this stuff that most probably will have no impact on their lives. Every kid plays soccer, t-ball, baseball. They're in 27 different sports plus dance. My daughter did it too. And I tried myself on my end to limit this a little so that she had more time. We spent a lot of time just laying on the couch watching some TV, playing some games of chess and other games, dominoes and so on. It was a little bit different than, always being in the hamster wheel, continually going. So my advice is to parents is quality time versus quantity of items. One activity like martial arts and maybe another one would, and then you make martial arts the staple or that one sport a staple. And that's what they focus on. Having people just dabble and, be in everything really does not make them better at anything, right? That old saying, master, whatever it is, the trade thing, where you do everything, but you're a master of none of them. That's my point. Anyway, I'm getting a lot of really great things, people commenting, chiming in, oh, John Hackelman's on with us. John, don't hassle me about, I said hackle me. Don't hassle me about kata. I talked about you just a few minutes ago if you didn't see it, but it was a good comment. So anyway, another real quick thing too I want to talk about is another question was, what are the benefits of traditional martial arts? This was Rich Silver, who trained with me, now lives in the Carolinas somewhere. To me, traditional martial arts, I could talk about this all day, and I'm going to try to make it brief because I've already been on for 18 minutes, and I want to try to wrap this up at around 30 minutes. If you are in a real martial arts school with an instructor who has real experience in real traditional martial arts, going back and learning from somebody who really experienced the martial arts, it is like night and day from just joining a regular school. Right? I was fortunate enough to be around world-renowned teachers my whole life. I'm very lucky. I've trained with, Steven Seagal for seminars and different things. He's a spiritual martial artist. I've trained with Chris Sayak, who was my teacher, who lived with me in my home for like a year or so. And I owned a school under him. And then he gave me the keys to the school and said, run it. I've trained with Shihan Felix Vasquez, who was a very militant traditional martial artist. Boy, oh boy, if you didn't listen to him, he kicked you out. If you didn't listen to him, you got a beating. If you didn't like the beating, he kicked you out. If you didn't listen, he kicked you out. Sometimes he'd take my belt away just to see. And he did this to me. Once I walked in the dojo, drove all the way to Queens. It was an hour-long ride. The door was a steel door with a little latch on it. You'd knock on the door. They'd look and see who you were. They'd let you in. At that time, they opened up, and one of the students said, Shihan said, give me your belt and go home. I didn't do anything wrong. I had no idea what was going on. And he said, I'm not kidding. So I handed my belt and he slammed the door on me. I came back for like 6 consecutive days after that, just knocking on the door, getting turned away until like the 6th day, they let me in and he handed me my belt and he said, good job. I just wanted to see that you were dedicated and that you would continue training and that you wouldn't let something like this, an obstacle, a speed bump, ruin you. Now, I have to tell you, I just had an issue the other day with a parent where they got upset with me over me saying you have to have your complete uniform. People get angry with me because I ask them to wear their uniform, their tabbies, their socks, their t-shirt. To me, that's just the way it goes. It's like, you know, a football player doesn't wear a baseball uniform. A cop doesn't wear a fireman's outfit. A police officer doesn't show up to work and say, hey, I forgot my gun or I forgot my pants, right? They have to be there with what they're supposed to have. The very bare minimum is showing up in your uniform, right? And making sure that you care enough to look on the calendar and see what weapons you're supposed to bring that day. Yes, I get it. We're all busy. But what is another 30 seconds out of your life going to take to just prepare? Before you go, you look and say, okay, let me look at the calendar and make sure I have everything. Why are we in such a rush to show up and not have what we're supposed to have? It's like showing up to a job and you're a carpenter and you don't have your hammer. What are you going to do at that point? Go back? So why don't you just check your toolbox before you go to the job? That's what I say when it comes to uniforms and the weapons that we're training for that week. It's not for me, people. It's for everyone that's coming to the dojo. This lesson, if I'm hard on a student or hard on a parent because they have their kids in my school and I'm stringent on my rules and regulations, it's because I want them to succeed. I want them to walk away with this discipline and these lessons and so on. So it's really important. So my student says, you know, what is traditional martial arts versus the modern student? I think that, and you know what, it doesn't necessarily have to be traditional martial arts. It just has to be, you know, training with that spiritual traditional mindset, right? It has to be that they are, you know, creating a better version of themselves, right? It doesn't matter if you're an MMA fighter or if you're a BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, or a karate or ninjutsu guy. It's all about how deep you go into the lesson. And John Hackelman, who's a trainer, he's on here now. He's a trainer of some of the best MMA fighters in the world, you know, world champions. He'll probably say the same thing, that, you know, it's about, you know, people not just kind of, and I say this to my students, don't pee all over the place. What I mean by that is P and P, pause or pace or push, right? You can either push yourself or pace yourself, right? You could do a workout and get through the workout at 70% and still get a good workout, or you could do the workout and, you know, totally kick butt and walk out of there dragging. Like I remember, which my teacher, she on basketball, whether you wanted to train or not, you got the crap kicked out of you, right? And I remember going in my truck. I had a 5-speed Mazda pickup truck that I would bring to the city because they'd steal my stereo every time I parked it and steal mirrors and all that. So I bought a truck and it was my work truck and that's what I would drive. And, you know, I would sit in my truck trying to conjure up enough energy, not just from physical exertion, but from the injury to my hip, from being thrown too hard, or my heel with a bone bruise on the bottom of my heel, or my elbow that was tweaked too much. And, you know, I would say to myself, like, what the heck am I doing to myself? Why am I doing this? And you know, now I know, because I know what it is like to take that abuse, to take that pain, to deal with it and still survive, to come back the next day. I learned all of that, maybe in spite of the lesson, but maybe because I am a thick-headed person. Maybe I'm stubborn and I wouldn't quit. But, you know, I could tell you that, you know, most people who are successful in anything they do are that way because they haven't given up. They don't allow the quit muscles to kick in. Right? They push themselves. They don't pace themselves, right? They're the ones that are the top of their craft because they went above and beyond. And I always tell my students this, do you want to be great or do you want to be mediocre? Do you want to just be okay or do you want to be phenomenal? I fear that sometimes in the society we live, that it's okay with people to just be mediocre. It's okay sometimes for the parents to allow their kids to be okay or just good enough to get by because they're getting by, and that's going to get them to that next level. I once had a long conversation with a parent about why their child wasn't ready to get their belt. I mean, we talked for 45 minutes. I felt like Rocky in the movie Rocky 1 when he's walking that girl down the street and he's talking to her about why she shouldn't act a certain way, and we was all done. He felt proud of himself, and he kept on walking. She went into her room, into her home, and then she opened the door and she said, "Hey, Rocky." And he turned with pride, waiting to hear a thank you. And she said, "Screw you." And he was like, "Okay." Yeah, why should anyone listen to me? I'm just a boxer, right? So I sometimes feel that way. And I had this long conversation with the parent and I said, listen, they're just not ready. We just want them to be ready. Why? And people get mad at us as martial artists, mad at the instructors because they didn't get their promotion or they didn't get what they wanted, like spoiled children in a candy store sometimes. So I'm just saying that we have the same desire. It's a team effort. It's the parents and the child, or the parents or that adult student and us, for the same goal, for them to be prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, to take on the world and be as prepared as possible. I don't think it's any instructor's goal to hold a person back for selfish reasons. And if it is, they're a really bad instructor. But I think the majority of the time, as an instructor who wants to make a student work harder, they push them harder, just like a Marine drill sergeant would do that to his recruits so that they are more prepared for the real life situation. I hope that makes sense. I'm 5 minutes away from closing up. Let me quickly just see. So many people on here. And my daughter's here. Kiara, how are you, honey? I love you. Sensei Hernandez, my good friend, who's probably one of my best buddies. And I told him the other day, he's a special person too. I mean, he's changed my life. He's changed thousands of people's lives. He's down in Puerto Rico. Sensei Hernandez, for you, sometimes you just seem to, be upset and sad because of possible things that go on in your life, but just always know that you are amazing. I mean, without you, half of us wouldn't be around. Half of Xi'an Vasquez's students wouldn't be around. So you have changed people's lives beyond what you could ever believe. And oh man, here's a good one. Tess Swayak is here. She and Tuhan, my teacher who just recently passed away, and I loved him to death, and I love her to death, and they stayed with me at my home, and they have changed people's lives. So I'm honored, beyond honored, that you're actually even on this call. I'm getting a little choked up because I think of Tuhan almost every day, and he's amazing. And I regret that I wasn't able to come and see you guys. And every time we tried to do something, we were both in different places. But, I think of him on a daily basis. Anyway, so that's really it. Someone wrote, John Hackelman, that they're looking to see our debate on wrist locks, so we could do that soon for you guys. And one last question. One of my students says, what are the benefits of students who have disabilities? And I don't like the word disabilities, situational abilities, right? Or a situation, not a disability. So a child who has ADD, or they're on the spectrum with autism, or they're shy, before there were labels, there were children. Right? There was, Allie Alberigo, who was unfocused in class. He couldn't stay focused on math problems and sitting in a classroom in a box, staring at a board and having to do homework. I hated it. It was not my way of learning. I was a physical learner. I loved to have applications and martial arts and play in a band and have some reward at the end of the day. The school system failed me tremendously, not because of them, but just because it wasn't who I was. So, a kid who has a label, ADD, that means that they have the label. Every single kid who has the label, there might be some levels of severity, and everyone's trying to medicate and everyone's trying to get them so that they function as a person that we would consider to be without a disability. I don't want to say normal, because normal, there is no such thing, right? So I think that so often we're working so hard to try to put people in a specific category so that they could lead up to the tests. I mean, if you look at most of the people that were geniuses, they had what we would now consider some forms of autism, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. They had, probably attention deficit disorder, because that basically just means to me that you're bored and you can't focus, because I have kids in my school that supposedly have ADD, and when I give them something they like, they focus like crazy. They're not all over the spectrum. If you catch them with something that they enjoy, they are so focused, right? So does that mean that they can't focus? Of course not, because they are doing it, right? So it's about how we teach and try to put people in that box. By the way, that book talks about that. Again, it's called Yardsticks by Chip Wood. Get it. If you're a teacher, a martial artist, if you're a parent, you need to read this book to understand the mind at the different various stages of a student's life. I hope you guys had a good time. I just want you to know that I'm thankful that you guys even care about what I'm saying. You know what? The worst thing would be I would be online and there'd be like a cricket out there. So some people actually find that what I have to say is interesting. I'm honored. And I really, really feel happy that I'm able to share this. By the way, that's what a martial art teacher does. That's what any teacher does. They take every opportunity and they try to share what they have, whatever's special about them. My girlfriend, Nicole, who's out there listening too, who I love, she's amazing. And she's changed my life, over the last, almost over a year and a half. We've been together, never once argued, never really ever had a disagreement. We just laugh all the time and have a great time. So thank you for being you, and being there for me. But and I almost forgot what I was going to say. But so I am appreciative of of all of this stuff that I have going on, and that you guys are here with me right now. I'm probably going to do this once or twice a week for like a half hour, quick, and be done and over with. And I hope you enjoyed it. Shoot over to my Facebook page, to my Ali Alberigo Shihan page, and, write some comments on other topics. I'll try to keep going through topics. I hope this was informative to the martial artists, to the students, to the friends, to the parents, and I hope you got something out of it. I hope not too many people are unhappy with what I had to say, because inevitably there's always someone that's going to be annoyed. I said this the wrong way. I joked the wrong way. I'm used to that. I'm kind of building those spiritual muscles to block against those feelings and be able to not let it bother me, even though deep down inside I have to tell you it really does. When somebody doesn't like you as a martial artist or a martial arts school, or someone says something negatively, they post it on Yelp or on Facebook, it's not just the business that they're talking about. It's my baby. It's me. And it's hurtful. And I try to let it, just kind of wash off of me. But, sometimes I have to admit, those words are hurtful, and they're painful to hear. And, hey, listen, I try to always analyze them. I try to always look at every situation so that I can correct it and become a better person. But sometimes I also have to understand that I have to stick to my values, stick to my ways, so that I can continue keeping on and pushing and teaching. So anyway, everybody out there, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm really, really happy and honored to be here. Sayonara. Arigato gozaimasu.